Okay.
Yeah, okay. Right, got it. Okay, it's now approaching 3:20, and so I'd like to welcome you all to this virtual meeting of Hounslow's licensing panel. I would like to welcome the members of the panel who are sitting today, as well as council officers who will be assisting members throughout the meeting. In addition, I would like to welcome members of the public who are watching this meeting at home, or those who will be making a contribution later. I would also like to welcome the applicants. As you all may know, until this year, virtual meetings for council business were not legal, but as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and the quarantine arrangements required by government, the law has been changed to let local authorities meet in a virtual way to make decisions. Therefore, this meeting is taking place using the government regulations.
It's not great.
Sorry, is somebody speaking? Right, right. The way this meeting will work will be that as chair, I will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. As it's very easy for people to speak over each other in a meeting like this, I will ask each member or officer to speak in turn at the appropriate stage. This will mean that there should normally be no need for people to interrupt or ask to speak. However, I shall make sure that members have ample opportunity to ask questions and make comments upon the reports and applications before them. The exception to this arrangement will be the legal committee or licensing officers who may turn on their microphone to alert me to any legal, governance or planning issues that need addressing, although I would expect this to be rare. In addition, we have a producer of the meeting from our ICT department who may also contact me if necessary, but I think this is unlikely if all goes well. The etiquette for members of the panel and for officers who are expecting to speak will be to mute your microphones until you're asked to speak. This means that only one person will be speaking at a time, and there will be no background noise, making it easier for us to follow the meeting and also for those watching at home. I will also ask members always to say who they are when they make a contribution and to speak slowly and clearly for the same reason. We have 3 members of the licensing panel, the licensing committee with us today to form this panel, and it is we who will be making the decisions. Officers of the council will provide assistance and advice as required, but the final decisions will be made by the members. I would now like to introduce each of the members here tonight one by one. I will start with myself. I'm Cllr Richard Foote. I'm a member for Hamworth Ward, and I am the chair of licensing. I'll now go to Councillor Gabriella Giles.
Good afternoon, I'm Gabriella Giles. I'm a councillor for Cllr Riverside and a member of the licensing committee.
Councillor Surinder Purival.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Councillor Surinder Purival. I represent Heston Central Ward, and I'm a member of the panel.
Right, we're all muted again. Good. You've unmuted or somehow, Surinder. Right, that's okay. Right, I now move to the officers of the meeting. So I'm going to ask Rita Pankania to introduce herself.
Good afternoon. My name is Rita Pankania, Licensing Authority Officer for London Borough of Hounslow, presenting the case today.
Thank you, Rita. And to Lena Amir, our legal advisor.
Good afternoon. I'm Lena Amir for HB Public Law, and I'm the legal advisor to the licensing panel today.
Right, we also have officers acting in a producing role for the technical side of the meeting, but as they're not expected to be involved in the discussion of the meeting, I will thank them for their help, but won't ask them to introduce themselves. Right, have we all muted our microphones, it looks like? Yep. Members of the public are reminded that the agenda and all the reports being considered by the panel today can be found on the council website under the licensing panel meetings page. So if you want to see them, that's where to look. I also want to make sure that all members have seen the agenda and reports. Please now speak if you've not had them. I think we all checked this before. I would like to remind members of the need to hear all of the evidence in each report. Well, there's only one report, but in the report we're considering tonight. This means that you should listen to the whole debate. Please do not pop out to make tea or walk the dog or any other activity. This is a legal requirement. If you should find you are having technical problems and need to log out of the meeting and come back in again, please let me know immediately, ideally beforehand, but if not, afterwards by turning on your microphone. This would be a permitted interruption. We can then decide on how far we need to recap if that's necessary, or if the member needs not to vote. Finally, I would say to any member of the public listening or watching, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope this meeting will go well, but any virtual meetings may suffer from unexpected technical hitches, so please bear with us. I should also clarify that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel in the next few days. Contributors to the meeting are asked to remember that they will therefore be included in the recording of this public meeting. Thank you. We'll now move on to the agenda. We now move on to the licensing application for decision of this meeting. This afternoon's application is for a premises licence to permit an event to be held by the Cllr Group Limited in Gunnersbury Park in Brentford Ward. Where we need time contributions, I will ask the legal officer to alert me to when allocated timings have been reached. I will also ask her to alert me prior to the guillotine being reached if we've not concluded the meeting by that time. We have arranged that that each group will have 10 minutes, so 10 minutes to be allocated to the objectors between them. So it's a total of 10 minutes which they will need to speak within, and a similar 10 minutes to the applicants. May I remind all members, officers and public speakers at this meeting to introduce themselves each time they speak, and also to turn off their microphones when they finish speaking. It is also important to speak slowly and clearly so that everyone can understand what you are saying. Finally, if you are making reference to any agenda documentation, please give the page and paragraph details. The process for an application with speakers is as follows. Stage 1, the officer introduction and confirmation of the facts. The officers give their presentation on the application. The applicant will then be asked if they agree with the circumstances described in the officer's report. Stage 2 is usually police, licensed authority, other body cases. I understand that we do not have anyone from that group today, so we would move straight on to stage 3, which is the applicant's case. And then I will invite the applicants also to speak for 10 minutes in total, then answer questions from all other parties. There will be questions of the applicants. Then be questions of the applicants. We then go on to other persons, including objectors. Next, we ask the other persons to explain their submissions, and everyone will be given the chance to ask questions of them. They will have 10 minutes in total overall to make their points. Summing up, I will invite all parties to sum up their position, with the applicants being entitled to the last word, with their summing up being the last to take place. The panel will then leave the meeting to discuss the case and reach its decisions. It will be joined by no one else except the legal officer, who's there to give advice on the law but will not be a party to the decision. Once we've done that, we will return to this meeting to read out our decision on the application, and that will conclude the consideration of the item. We now therefore begin the formal hearing of this case, and I will start by inviting the licensing officer to introduce her report. Rita, if you could do that, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Members are requested to determine an application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of Gunnersbury Park, Pipes Lane, London, W3 8LQ. The application has been submitted by Cllr Group Limited. The licensable activities that have been applied for are as follows: supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises, Tuesday to Sunday, 1400 hours to 22:30. Saturday, 24th of July 2021, there's a community screening at midday to 22:30, and there's an amendment on the date. It should read Saturday, 14th of August, not the 4th, for the community screening. 12 midday to 22:30. Performance of plays, live films, live music, recorded music, performance of dance or anything of a similar description. Tuesday to Sunday, 1400 hours to 22:30. Community screening on Saturday, 24th of July, 12 midday to 22:30. And again, amendment of the date is this Saturday, 14th of August, community screening midday to 22:30. The opening hours for the event are Tuesday to Sunday, 1400 hours to 2300 hours. Saturday, 24th July, community screening, 12 midday to 2300 hours. And Saturday, 14th of August, community screening, 12 midday to 2300 hours. 3.1 of the agenda says the premises are not currently licensed. That should be amended as they are licensed. Gunnersbury Park is actually licensed for other events. And there has been representations from 3 members of the public to this application. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Foote, you're muted.
Yeah, I shut myself off and then didn't put it back on. Right, sorry. Yes, I now ask the applicant if they agree the circumstances as described by officers. And just to clarify, this is not yet the time for them to put their own case. It's just to get confirmation of the facts at this stage. So the applicants, yes?
Do we need a verbal confirmation from somebody rather than?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
we were just,
sorry.
just waiting who was going to answer. Yes, we agree.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies.
Right, we don't have anybody from the Police Licensing Authority or any other body. Can I just confirm that with you, Rita? I'm pretty sure that's correct, but just before we move on.
Yes, Councillor, that's correct. There was nothing from the police authority at all.
Okay. Thank you,
excuse
Rita.
me, it's Bill the Clerk here. If I may interrupt, Chair.
Yeah.
I've resent an updated invitation to Ms. Lowe, who we now have a phone in. Are you on the line now, Ms. Lowe?
I am indeed, finally.
Right, so sorry. I resent
That's
an invitation earlier, only to realise that it was one sent prior to amending the invite list, and therefore the number would have changed. So I've got it.
Yes.
I'm terribly sorry, Ms. Lowe. I sent you the number before last, but you've got it now. You've only missed the introduction. You haven't missed the main bit. So sorry about that, everyone. We now all have all hands on deck.
Okay. Well, we haven't got into any part of the body of the meeting. It's really just getting the procedures lined out. So I didn't catch the name of it. Who was it, Bill, that we're talking about?
This is Ms. Alison Lowe, who's one of the people who have sent in a representation.
Oh, okay. Right. Alison, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, then. Right. Well, we'll press on then. We're now at the stage of hearing the applicant's case. So this is perhaps an appropriate moment for you to join us on that. Right.
Excellent.
Okay. So we now move to the submissions from the applicants. May I ask them to state their name and address and give their reasons for the application. May I also remind you that you may only speak for a total of 10 minutes overall. So I'm now the applicant to speak to their application.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm my name is Anna Wilson. I'm the community manager for Secret Cinema. Secret Cinema have over a decade's worth of experience delivering dynamic large-scale events across London. We're a professional, responsible company used to working collaboratively with local councils, stakeholders and residents. We would love the opportunity to return to Gunnersbury Park and deliver an exciting cultural experience for the borough this summer. We are of course liaising with Public Health England with regards to COVID-19 management, and would reiterate that we will only move forward with the project if it is safe to do so under government guidelines. Our event management plan details the protocols we will have in place to deliver a safe show run. This also highlights actions to minimise potential disruption, public nuisance and issues of crime and disorder. Our demographic is a creative, theatre-going audience and not the type of younger, inebriated audience you might associate with a music festival. We have a detailed noise management plan, working with dedicated acousticians and sound specialists to create a sensitively designed scheme with directional speakers and screen facing away from residences. Our sound levels are set by the local authority and are closely monitored and adhered to throughout the process as agreed under the terms of our licence, should it be granted. We're working closely with TfL, Acton Town Station and lift share operators to ensure a safe and considered site ingress and egress to and from site, keeping our audience away from residential streets wherever possible. Our site is under 24-hour security and CCTV surveillance, minimising the opportunity for antisocial behaviour during our stay. In addition, we conduct full bag searches and apply the Challenge 25 rule to those purchasing alcohol on site. Our patrons are invited to arrive at staggered intervals, which helps us manage audience flow. It is also our experience that people do not leave our events en masse, meaning there should be a steady exit so as not to overburden local transport. We have a large number of trained stewards operating from our site entrance to the station, in addition to traffic marshals managing taxi pickup routes. We also have a team of litter pickers on this route, ensuring that we keep the area tidy. For community engagement, we have already hosted one stakeholders meeting and one virtual resident meeting to date, with our next scheduled for June. We have a live resident webpage and mailing list sign up, and a publicised contact for Secret Cinema, which is myself. As part of our community offerings for the show, there are 1,500 free residence tickets available to residents throughout the show run. We engage locally with local suppliers, so local companies will have the opportunity to tender for contracts with particular focus on food traders. We work with local job brokerage services to advertise role within our front of house security and bar teams, and we're a London living wage employer. We offer a learning and participation programme, 5 careers-based workshops for local schools and community groups, a specially curated immersive show for 500 local young people, a free family-friendly community film screening for 1,500 local residents, 2-day work experience placements for 12 young people, and a local charity partnership. We're currently in conversation with the Hogarth Youth Centre and Gunnersbury Community Garden. We're also in conversation with Gunnersbury Youth Forum, the Youth Justice Service, and various other local services regarding these opportunities for young people. We have a fully accessible site and provide free carer tickets for any access patrons. It is always our undertaking to be respectful, responsive neighbours, and hope we will have this opportunity to demonstrate these qualities again at Gunnersbury this summer. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Foote, you're muted again.
I know. I say, right, is there anyone else from Secret Cinema going to speak, or? Am I assuming?
I believe it was just myself, Councillor Foote, but we have our technical and production teams here to answer any technical questions.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I didn't want to cut across you if you didn't, because you were well within your 10 minutes that we'd allocated. Okay, right. So now we move to questions. So I'm going to first go to members to ask questions, and then after that to other persons, which is way of saying objectors, or allowing for those that may not be objectors, but other persons. So first of all, I'm going to go to councillors, and I'll start with Councillor Giles. Do you have anything questions?
Of course I do. We've done enough of these.
Be so silly as to say.
Alan, thank you so much for your presentation and for approaching us today. I've got quite a few questions, but I think we'll start with some of the points that you illustrated. So site ingress and egress, you said that you're speaking to Acton Town. Obviously that's one of the most predominant routes for people coming by tube on the district line. Are you doing anything else about Gunnersbury tube station? Because again, it's not that far from the park. And there are two different lines that service that station. So that would be my first question.
Right. Councillor Giles, I'm going to pass this over to my colleague Rob, who deals with traffic management.
Good afternoon. So one of the key premises of the way Secret Cinema works and worked previously when we were at Gunnersbury Park back in 2018 is we don't tell our audiences where the event is taking place. What we do is we give them a meeting point, which is usually a transportation hub, and in this case is Acton Town again. So our audiences won't be heading directly to the park. They will be meeting us at the station, and then we will be guiding them through human signposts, if you like, from the station to the park, and then through the park to our entrance, and then again on the way back at the end. And this is something that we've done with hundreds of thousands of people over dozens of events over the last 10 years, and worked really well with Acton Town back in 2018. Yeah. We had a really good relationship with the station staff there. They got to the point where they decorated the station in line with our event. So it's a real sort of collaboration and worked really nicely. Yeah. I should probably disclose that I attended one of your events back in years ago actually, but I haven't attended one at Gunnersbury, but I'm fully aware of your kind of intent and kind of setup. So I should probably clarify that first. And how many people are you expecting to attend for each viewing? So we've applied for 4,999. Of that, 4,750 will be our audience members, and the rest will be made up by security, staff, cast, crew, etc., etc. So just 4,750. And 750. Okay. So that's members of the public who will buy tickets and attend. Great. Yeah, there'll be a number of people who may have come as on a guest list or something, but yes, members of the public, 4,750. Yeah. I haven't seen within this. Is there like an age limit for tickets or kind of guidance on the films, or? And so kind of when we're looking at under 18s and the potential exposure or threat to risk is kind of what is the expected age of your attendees? And you talk about family days, so I understand that there might be variables. So there are different kinds of shows. The vast majority of our shows will be the one film, which is for over 18s only, as well as running the Challenge 25 scheme. So we sort of cover things both ways there. If we do any of our family or resident screenings, they will be a different film. They may be for under 18s, but it's a much different kind of setup. It's much more of a family setup than our traditional run of shows. Yeah. Okay, great. And sorry, I've got like a lot of questions. So so also then when we're talking about the application for licensing, obviously the films are due to finish at 10:30, but you say that you're going to be serving alcohol up until that point, even though the premises or like the license for the premises will be 11. Is there any way that you could kind of end the sale of alcohol sooner to avoid people kind of rushing to the bar in order to get drinks before they have to leave? So actually, we do it deliberately in order to extend our egress at the end of the show. This is in order to not minimise, but limit the number of people who are leaving all at one time. So actually, although the film may go down, we may have other activities which take place much lower level, much quieter, to just try and spread out our egress of people to minimise the impacts on the local roads and the local neighbourhood, but also on the tube station as well. So it's actually a deliberate reason for doing that.
So just so I can clarify, you'd expect the film to finish maybe around 10, maybe a bit earlier, still having that extra time for people to kind of talk about the film and maybe take advantage of the other amenities. And those who
absolutely.
And then you still have that half-an-hour barrier. Great. I just wanted to clarify that. You also talk about not selling alcohol to people who are very obviously are already under the influence. Are there any measures that you undertake to avoid people buying alcohol for other people who may already be too drunk to buy alcohol themselves?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so our bars team have worked with us for a number of years, and we have a designated home supervisor on site with us. Everybody goes through our bars training, and that is part of it. Is that, and it is a challenge. How do you stop somebody buying a drink for somebody who is not the person that's then going to drink it? However, obviously everybody's over 18 anyway. We have a lot of stewards and a lot of security, and obviously CCTV on the site as well. So we'll make best endeavours to try and limit that impact as best we can. But it is a slightly tricky one. I'll give you that. But the thing that we benefit from is our cast and crew and our technical teams all go through our stewarding training, which means that in the event of something not going to plan or the event of an emergency, they sort of break character and they can then take on a stewarding role. So our numbers of eyes on the ground are significantly greater than perhaps a normal or another event or sort of guidance would suggest.
Yeah, of course. And then also talking of egress and taxi pickup, probably more than taxi drop. I know that you've got a route on the southwest corner of Gunnersbury Park, and how do you encourage patrons to kind of use that spot as opposed to, say, the busy North Circular or somewhere down there, like, or other access routes that may be more tricky?
So we have a way of working with the ride share companies so that we can actually limit where they can put their sort of collection markers. I'm not a technical person, so I'm not exactly sure how that works, but apparently it's a thing. And we are working in line with and I believe it's Gunnersville used this taxi routing plan successfully a couple of years ago, and we were encouraged to reuse that by the parks team. When our audiences leave the site, they are directed very clearly, you know, tube this way, car lift sharing, just family members picking them up this way, and so they are encouraged to and directed quite clearly which way to go. And our audiences are pretty compliant. I mean, nobody's perfect, but we get a lot more buy-in from our audiences who see this as part of, you know, from the moment they buy a ticket all the way through to the end of the event, they really buy into what we're doing. And it's something that, and we didn't get it perfect the last time we were in the park in 2018. It wasn't as good as it could have been, and we've learned from that, and that's why we're now doing it this way on something which I believe is more proven.
Great. And anybody who's using, say, like a mini cab company or even private, kind of being collected by private car, is there any provisional facility for this?
So what we found is that we will work with TfL, and we also find that once we've done the first couple of shows, the local drivers learn where they're going to get their pickups from and where they're going to be, and we will encourage them to get into the park and use the system that we've got set up.
Yeah, I think I'm more concerned about, say, that private car who like, you know, family member or whatever is going to pick up a friend who's only attending the event on a one-off.
It's not something that we have a huge issue with. Most of our audience members do tend to go home by public transport. 10% of them leave before the end of the film. It's something that, as I say, we've not had a huge experience of it being a problem, but we're not naive enough to think that it might not be a problem. So we're very happy to, you know, keep an eye on things with our security team and our stewarding team. And if we do start to have issues, then we can use our best endeavours to sort of direct people back into our system.
Right. So you don't explicitly state in any of your correspondence to patrons that you know, you don't encourage people to come by or be collected by private vehicle?
We do tell our patrons to use public transport, and the vast majority do. And we very much encourage that, because it's something that they're sort of used to doing as well, because quite often they like a drink, or it's part of the experience. Quite a lot of them will come in fancy dress. But for those that choose to leave by a different route, we have the system in place for collecting within the park, and we'll monitor if we have any other issues.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to clarify that point. And so then you talk about electricity power. So okay, so actually let's go on to, so on page 28, I've made some notes here about sound impact and involvement. So you've already talked about other stakeholders, you've talked about speaking with the Hounslow Youth Group, and on the page 27, you talked about what you did in 2018. Will that be continued? And you've also mentioned 2 different films that were presented in 2018. Is that because it was the same event and you had 2 different screenings, or 2 different film screening, or was it a mistake?
We will have had our main film screening, which would have been the one that our audiences sort of bought tickets for, and the main theming was around.
Yeah.
And then I think probably the second film we're referring to is the resident screening, which we also did.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to find the page of the application so I can just double check which page.
So 27. So page 27, you say the previous showing of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet ran for 15 nights, and then on the next part of that, you said you produced a free community screening of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And obviously that's obviously your community event. That's for families and local residents. So even though we talk about those main events being only over 18s only, what measures are then taken for those community events to ensure that some of those points that we've discussed earlier are not breached?
Yeah, Anna, would you mind talking? Just
she's got her hand up
anyway, so. Oh, there we go. Okay, fine.
Thanks, Councillor Giles. Yeah, just to reiterate, that is entirely correct. We run our main film production, and then the community screening is something quite separate. So there's a couple of things that make it different. The first being it's a much reduced audience. So it's a capacity of 1,500 local people to attend the community screening. We have less bars open, and there are less concessions open, less activities. It very much functions almost like a sort of picnic drive-in. People can bring in their own foods and sandwiches and stuff, and bring their children. So it becomes very much a daytime focused event.
That's great to hear. And then I guess not that I would expect it at one of your events, but do you have a policy on the consumption of drugs?
We've got a very, very tight security, so we do bag checks and person checks when people are coming in. And I would say anecdotally, we have had next to no trouble with drugs at any of our events. I can't even think, going back a couple of years, where that's really ever been an issue. But yes, again, we've got CCTV, we've got stewards, and we're very much looking out for any type of antisocial behaviour during the event, so we can nip it in the bud. But historically, it's not something that we've ever had issues with.
Yeah, and to go back to egress of the park and paying attention to some of the notes we've had about urination in gardens and kind of on that route back to Acton Town. Obviously, you know, you've got toilets within your site, but will there be any other provision for that route? Because oftentimes, you know, people like to go before they get on the tube, should we say?
As far as I'm aware, there's no provision for toilets out with the site itself. I know that certainly when we were there in 2018, I think there was only one instance of such behaviour. And I think it actually turned out not to be one of our audience members. So again, we kind of, you know, we allow people, that's why we have that little window at the end as well, so that we encourage people to sort of use the facilities before they leave site. And on that ingress and egress, it's marshalled the entire way to the station. So that's another thing that all of our all of our stewards are looking out for if anybody's a little bit worse for wear, just to, you know, keep them on the main track and get them back to the station safely.
And will you be working with TfL to make sure that toilet facilities within the station will be open?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rob can expand on that a little bit, but as he said, we had a really wonderful relationship with the station itself the last time that we did an event there, and they were very, very accommodating with regards to their facilities, so we don't see any issue there.
Super. Sorry, I'm just looking for the reference where you've said about diesel. Sorry, apologies. I'm looking for my page. Oh yeah, page 62. You talk about diesel spillage and power to the to your site. So you talk about mains electricity being used if possible. Are there locations like power sources close to where you're setting up, and how much will you be relying on, say, diesel generators if used?
I'm happy to answer that one. We're still working with the parks team. Mains power is something we're always keen to use. It's much cleaner, it's more stable, but it is likely that the vast majority of our power will be from generators that we place on site.
Okay, and so I see that you've kind of got a policy on diesel spillage, but I'm kind of concerned about the extra kind of safety around that. But I presume that's going to be part of your. So you don't have an idea of how many generators may be used?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
What we tend to try to do is have a number of localized generators so that we don't have to run power cables as far around the site.
Yeah.
Our production team are well experienced in using generators, so they're fenced off, they're in back of house areas, they're only accessible to certain members of our production team. They are diesel rather than petrol because it's much less likely to have fire issues, and all of that gets put into our event management plan and risk assessed as part of our process. I will try and quickly count up on the site plan while we're talking to see roughly how many areas we've got as we go along. Okay.
Councillor Foote, I think that's all for now. I can't find what I'm looking for, so I'll allow somebody else to ask some questions.
Yeah, fine, Gabriella. Well, you have the opportunity to look for it while we're answering. If you can come back at the end, if you find what you're looking for. I'll turn now to Councillor Puddivell. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Foote. I had a lot of questions which already my colleague had asked. One question I wanted to ask at the end, when people are able to drink, and you may have to face some people who are over the top. How do you deal with that?
Sorry, so are you asking how we deal with people who've had too much to drink?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, our security company are really good. We've worked with them for a number of years across all of the events that we do. We've got a really good relationship with them. They have staff who are customer facing and friendly, but are also SIA qualified and very experienced in dealing with people. You know, if we have people who have got to the point of drinking too much, it's very unusual. It's not the kind of audience that we have, and we're very different to some of the other events that take place around London, like the music festivals or the dance music events. Our audience are very much more like a theatre going audience. We have free water available at all our bars. We have medics on site throughout the live period, and as we've already mentioned, we have stewards on the route back to the station as well. So should somebody get into trouble on the way back to the station, there's also the opportunity for us to communicate back to our control room by radio, so that if they do have a problem, we can get medics out to them should we need to. Not that I can recall an instance where we've had to do that in the past.
Thank you. And were there any sort of incidents, any incidents which from which you have learned something, but you managed to cope with it?
Incidents we've learned from. I mean, we're very fortunate because we do have a very, very low incident rate. We usually get asked this question in terms of, you know, how many times we have to call the police or how many times we have an ambulance on site from externally, and it is very low, and it's the fingers of one hand kind of impact in terms of the number of times we've had to call for help from anybody externally. And this is partly because we've got a really good audience, and it's also because we have a lot of structures in place. So our events are run very much like a big theatre show. Our control room monitors via CCTV and radio feedback from all of the staff on site at all times. And so we have constant communication, and we can control our audiences quite closely. We definitely learned a lesson from taxis in 2018. We didn't get that right, and we struggled for a number of evenings, but we worked really hard to overcome those problems. And in fact, the environmental health team said that one of the things we did really well was our ability to sort of react and overcome the challenges that we faced when we met after our event in 2018.
Right. Well, clearly that you actually made arrangements, that you learned something and you actually took the steps to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all. I didn't have any question because more of the questions were asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Surinder. Well, I've just got a couple of bits really asking for amplification on page 4 at the top there on 4.3. It's the last two points on 4.3 about experience of event management, venue, daily checks, excellent methods, protocols, etc. I'm looking for a bit of amplification there. In addition to that, also the paragraph following under the prevention of public nuisance, to really amplify that and to fill in the gaps, and so we can understand a little bit more about quite what you mean by these statements.
Okay.
Am I giving, because I'm
sorry,
using our
I've
page
got slightly
numbers.
different page numbers than you have. I'm just trying
yeah.
to work my way through. So this is on the license application, and this is the licensing objectives.
That's right. Yeah, it comes under. Yeah, it comes down. If you look through the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, the 4 of them. So it's really public safety, the last 2 paragraphs, and the first paragraph on prevention of public nuisance. If we could get some amplification on that.
Okay. So Anna, feel free to jump in at any point. In terms of public safety, I work for a health and safety company, and we work with Secret Cinema. We have full event management plans, construction-based plans, and we apply all of the necessary legal frameworks to the build of our site, the live operation, and the dismantle of our site as well. We do have lots of paperwork in place, but we also have a pragmatic approach to health and safety. We understand that the shows have to get built, but we also make sure that everybody goes home at the end of the day to their families. My colleague John looks after the health and safety for the build, the live and the dismantle. He's a chartered health and safety advisor. He's got 20 years experience. I'm also a chartered health and safety advisor. So we take it really seriously. And we have a number of systems and processes in place through bespoke software that we use, and we monitor pretty much everything on a daily basis. So somebody will check all of the structures, all of the tents, all of the excuse me, all of the cabins and everything that's in place, as well as checking for fire protection equipment is in the right places, everything is electrically signed off, and all of that reporting goes back to our control room. We have a live control room which is open at all times that we're live to the public, and they are monitoring and logging every single thing that happens through the radio network, every piece of communication. And they also have access to a wide-ranging CCTV system, and so they can keep an eye on everything that's going on the site. In terms of public nuisance, I'm going to ask Anna to talk about this, because she's our community manager, and she is the person with her team who really has the interaction with the audience, with our neighbours particularly.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, I mean, in terms of public nuisance, I think it's twofold really. The first is having such a fantastic security team, as we've said before, who are very experienced and very dynamic in dealing with the type of shows that we do. But having that extra presence of traffic marshals and stewards, which take audience all the way back to the tube station, is very, very helpful in monitoring any kind of sort of bad behaviour, because we've physically got people on the street there to take care of that. In terms of the park itself and any sort of residual movement out with the park, the fact that we do have CCTV and that we have security on site 24 hours per day. So even when the show isn't running, there is a very dedicated site presence. And I know that when we've done the shows in the past, certainly, the police have been very happy with us, because there's such a huge presence and so many lights and so many people that it's actually decreased calls out to the local police station. So we're very confident, as we were when we put on a show in 2018, that we weren't aware of any instances of public nuisance or destruction with regards to the show.
Okay. In terms of when everything's all over, how much time are you putting into taking all this down and removing it, and in fact any repairs to the surface or anything like that that may be needed?
I'll hand back to you, Rob. I believe it's a week for the get out, but I'll hand back to you, Rob.
Yeah, so there's two questions there, and there are two phases to our removal of our equipment. So from our last show to our sort of last moment on site is approximately a week, 7 days. We then have an agreement with the park. We pay a bond for any damage to the park that's like above and beyond the wear and tear that would be expected of an event of this size, but we are not park experts or groundskeeping experts. So the arrangement we have with the Gunnersbury Park CIC is that as soon as we move off the site, they come in and they will make any necessary repairs or undertake to bring the grounds back to as they were when we took over. But we don't do that ourselves. The arrangement is that they do it on our behalf, but we pay for that above and beyond the wear and tear.
Okay, that's fine. Gabriella, you were going to dive through your notes to see if you had anything else to say.
Yeah, I've just got one question, and it's actually quite a vital one. Is how many showings a day do you have? Is it just the one? But the intention is that people are allowed to come into the park from what, 2 o'clock or into the site, I should say, from 2 o'clock, or is it because like from my experience, I think it started at 5 and there was time, and are you allowing for that time to? And apologies, I'm very much leading this question. It's one of those things that are you asking for the earlier start times to give you flexibility?
Absolutely, it's purely in terms of flexibility, getting our bar set up, etc. But we only have one show per evening, and audience arrive on site from 5:30 onwards, so it is very much condensed within that couple of hours in the evening.
Okay, perfect. That was it, and I thought it was quite an important one to come back to. I knew I had one.
Can I just jump in and answer your question about generators? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so according to the latest site plan that I'm looking at, we have 2 areas for generators, both in back of house areas away from public access. Each one of those looks like it's got 2 generators and an external fuel tank in it. And I mean, they are big generators. There's no getting around that. But they are secured in their own compounds, and they have their own fire protection equipment with them, and checked on a daily basis, and had to go through our refueling process for adding diesel to them.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Surinder, do you have any more questions?
He's muted, but I think he said no.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're muted, Surinder.
No, don't have another question. No, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Surinder. Right, can we move on then? If the councillors have finished their questions, so I'm now going to ask if there are any questions from the other persons, which I'm assuming they're all objectors, but they may of course not be. So I'll keep calling them other persons. Always sounds a bit rude to me, but never mind. So if I could have any questions from the other persons that are present.
Hello, yes, it's Alison Lowe here. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave very shortly. I don't have so many questions. I would just like to make a brief statement, if that's okay, before I go. You sound like a very responsible bunch, Secret Cinema, but I have heard that before, and it doesn't matter what your intentions are, I will very well probably likely end up with people using my front yard as a parking space of pickup, or a vomitorium, or a public toilet. But I think more it's really about the creeping change of use for the park. It is a public green space.
Yeah, can I ask you, if you're talking about general things, we need to be specific about this particular application.
Of course, yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I just say that this is really putting another nail in the coffin, because it has alcohol, it has thousands of people, and it has diesel generators, etc. And I do appreciate their good intentions, but I do not think that was the park's intended use. It's not the O2, it's not an entertainment venue. It was given to the public as a public green space. So, and this seems to be very broad to me, 2 to whatever it is for every Tuesday to Sunday of the year. It sounds to me like something that could creep into other areas and set a precedent for other applicants. So that is my main objection. The questions that I would have asked have all been asked very well by the councillor and answered, but it doesn't alter my objection, I'm afraid, for the reasons I've just stated. So thank you very much for having me, and I have to leave now, and I look forward to hearing the outcome.
Okay. Was there any of the other members of the public who were in the other persons? William, do you know?
No, there aren't, Chair.
Okay, so I didn't want to skip over and miss anybody.
Yeah, only Miss Lowe has actually attended.
Okay, right, fine. Okay. Right, now where are we? I'm losing where I am. Right, well, we've actually sort of moved over to stage 4 because she did make it not just a question but also a statement. So yeah, so I think we've picked up on the objector's case as much as we could. Let me try and get back on track. So we don't have it, can't ask any questions of the other persons. So right, we're skipping in very quickly now, I think. So I'm going to go right really into summing up. I think can't see that we've got any other part. Has anybody noticed that I've missed anything? I think we've covered.
No, Councillor Foote, I think
Yeah.
Unless our legal advisor has anything particular they want to add.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, yeah. Lena?
No, I think we're on track, Councillor Foote.
Right, that all sounds very encouraging to me. Thank you very much. Right, so we're moving to summing up. In the absence of other persons, I move straight to the applicants. If you'd like to sum up, but can you please stick to what you've already talked about and really be just that, summing up, and not introducing any new information. So over to you.
Absolutely, thank you, Councillor Foote. I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, we feel very lucky to be able to potentially use the facilities at Gunnersbury Park, and it was a real delight when we put our show on there in 2018, which is what's encouraged us to come back. As you'll know, we had actually planned to do the show last summer, and we had our licensing planning in place, and obviously because of the pandemic we very sadly had to cancel. So we just are feeling very positive and very optimistic about the events industry reopening in London, and we feel that we have as I said, a coherent and cohesive plan for how we might do this safely, and ultimately bring a little bit of joy back into the events life of London. I don't really have anything to add other than that. I hope we've answered your questions very transparently. And like I say, we would be really thrilled at the prospect of being able to come back and bring a little bit of happiness into everyone's lives in July. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Anna.
Sorry, Councillor Foote, can I just ask for a clarification from the applicant, if that's okay?
Who's speaking?
It's Rita, licensing
Rita,
officer.
okay, sorry, Rita. Yes, please.
Anna, you've given us 3 options. Does that mean you will only pick one option if they were minded to grant the licence on the dates?
In terms of the dates, I think Rob, it's probably better if you answer that, because I think we've put in additional dates for just in terms of a bit of flexibility.
Yeah, so my question was, would it be all 3 options, or you'll pick one option out of those? Thanks.
We will pick one option, but we don't know which option necessarily because of the COVID situation. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay, I think that was my understanding as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's very much our hope that we would be able to launch the show on the 14th of July. I think that's the dates that we're really looking for. But as Rob said, we'd put in just for a degree of flexibility in case there was any slowdown in the government opening up, you know, in terms of the lockdown rules. So it's only for flexibility really regarding government guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Why does the 14th of July sound important to me? Never mind. Okay, right. Lena, can I come to you now to just to do the clarity of the procedure for making decisions and what options are open to us as the licensing panel, please?
Yes, of course, Councillor Foote. In terms of the options open to the panel now, you have 3 options. One is to grant the application in full and on the terms and conditions contained within the application, to include any applicable mandatory conditions. 2 would be to grant the application as stated in 1, but modified to such an extent as considered appropriate to satisfy any relevant representations and to promote the licensing objectives. Or 3, to reject the application in whole or in part. So those will be your 3 options.
Okay, thank you, Lena. Right, what I propose now is that we would adjourn to our separate room, virtual room, I should say, and consider the application. Now, normally I say that I would hope that we'll be back within 15 minutes. So if it gets to be longer than that in our adjournment, then we will notify through Bill Lee that we're taking a bit longer, and everybody will be notified in the room. What I would ask is that everyone involved in the meeting turn off their video cameras and microphones whilst you're waiting for the panel to return. The reason is because the meeting will still be live and viewable by the public. So please don't talk to each other with cameras and microphones on, as this will mean you will be overheard and you may not wish to have that happen. I would also ask you not to leave the meeting if that's at all possible, so you'll be ready for our return on our return to hear the decision. If you can't wait, may I thank you for your involvement, and that goes obviously for the objectors. I now formally ask my fellow members and our legal advisor to leave this meeting for the time being and join me in the withdrawing room. So we'll be leaving now. As I say, if you please turn off your microphones and cameras whilst we're gone, and hopefully we will be back with you shortly. Thank you. Right. Gabriella, Lena is with us, so, and Serinda's with us, so we're all here, are we? Can't see anybody else. Let me just make sure we're in the right room.
I can see you, Councillor Foote.
All right, okay, we're all here. Okay, yeah, I've got the list up now. It's my camera doesn't seem to be working fine. It's got me on screen, but I can't see any of my colleagues. But yeah, we're all here. Okay, is everyone from the applicant in with us and live? Yes, I see Anna, you're here. Is all your colleagues there that need to be?
Yes, I believe so. I can see Carly on screen, and yes, the other colleagues are in attendance.
Right, okay then. Let's kick off then. Yeah, myself and my two colleagues, we've considered everything that has been brought before us this evening, or this afternoon, and we, with a couple of slight adjustments, are quite happy to go ahead and accept your application for a licence. The one thing that we do ask for is that a number of the items that you put in were statements, and we'd rather have them and get them translated down to conditions as being more appropriate. Lena, our legal advisor, will in fact be doing that and just adjusting them down into the final document. So, as I say, it seems then it's rather than a statement, it will be seen as a condition. And they were things that you'd put in. So yes, as far as that's concerned, yes, we accept your application, and we wish you luck with your item in the summer, and we hope to get some good feedback.
Thank you so much for your time, everyone, today. Thank you, Councillor Foote. Thank you, everyone else. Yeah, we're really thrilled. So we hope to see you at some point in Gunnersbury Park in the summer.
Yep. Right. Okay. We're gonna hang on. Where's who we got doing? Bill, we're gonna hang on to while we wind down. Now we disconnect the public first.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think nothing more to be said.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Okay. Peter, you okay? So.
Sorry, Councillor Foote, just the only other thing would be that just to confirm for everybody who's attending, that the written confirmation of the decision will be sent out in 5 days. So you should have a written version of it to hand.
My apologies. Well, you've done it for me. Thank you, Lee. Yes. It all sounded, I thought to myself, now this sounds like I'm being very quick here with this. It's I've missed something, definitely missed something out. Yeah. Thank you, Lena. Yeah, so if everyone takes account of that it will be available within 5 days.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay then, so are we all ready to go home and have tea or whatever needs to be done?
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much, councillors.
Thank you. Be safe.